get people up to speed with what the requirements are. So is everyone completely up to their eyeballs in penalty notices? I tend to avoid return on investment. The ones that we're responsible for, did we get them all done on time? Is the software that we've got working as expected? Are the clients doing what we wanted? The key things here are like start early. I'm looking for efficiency. It's going to take at least a year for us to kind of get a bit of a handle on what's going on, what's gone well, what's not gone well. I see a lot of accountants getting really hung up on.
Welcome to the final episode of the MTD Masterclass series brought to you by Landlord Studio. I'm Logan Ransley here with John Toon for one last time. Today we ask the question, what does an ideal 2026 workflow look like when MTD is in full swing? And how much time automation can one firm realistically save? We'll share John's final actionable advice for accountants preparing right now. But if you have been following along the series, this episode will tie everything together and give you a clear path forward. So go back, review those, and watch those episodes for all the other information. But let's finish strong. John, let's imagine it's mid-2026 and MTD is in full swing. There is a balance between supporting clients and making them dependent on you as well. MTD is going to mean more hand holding for sure, more client interaction, especially in the first year. And there's no way firms can pick up all the slack. So I guess how can firms sort of maintain control whilst encouraging clients to actually use the digital tools and automation features they've been recommended?
So I think that probably the key things here are like start early. Start with that communication that we talked about in previous episodes and get people up to speed with what the requirements are. Because I think the clearer they are on what's going to be required, the changes that they're going to have to think about, that makes your life so much easier because you're not going to have to do that education process in sort of 6 months' time when we come to April, and all of a sudden it's like you're not going to have anywhere near the kind of time and capacity to kind of do that. I think the other thing as well is to figure out what are you going to do as a practice. What's your strategy around how are you going to deliver this, and have you got the scope and the scale to be able to do lots more bookkeeping and submissions for clients on a quarterly basis, or not? And do you have a desire to kind of do that? I think you're absolutely right. That first quarter, probably the first and second quarters, potentially are going to be the most complex in terms of identifying mistakes, identifying clients who are going to come into this last minute, you teasing out problems in your workflow when you've done things but they haven't really been that efficient and stuff. So the ideal advice there is to be proactive, which is great, but that's a throwaway term when you're busy and you've got firefighting lots of different things, right? So the only way really you can manage that is unfortunately to try and set aside some time to kind of just review what's gone on. And again, in an ideal world, you'd be able to do that, but we know that people don't operate in an ideal world. So I think if you could already sort of say, schedule a meeting with the team that's going to be delivering this on, I don't know, the 10th of August next year. Get that in the diary right now that says, hey, we'll have gone through quarter one by now and we'll have done hopefully all of our submissions, and we'll have caught some of the late ones as well. Let's just put an hour in the diary to kind of like reflect on what's happened in the last few months. What's gone well? What's not gone well? Is the software that we've got working as expected? Are the clients doing what we wanted? Are we getting the kind of the right sort of results, or is everyone completely up to their eyeballs in penalty notices? And well, there won't be penalty notices, but notices that things have been done late and clients are up in arms and stuff, because that's the only way I think to be able to kind of like get a bit of a handle on it. And then from there, you can kind of plan, like, what do we need to change? What do we need to tweak? What do we need to improve? Where have we got our communication completely wrong with clients? And who are the ones that are always going to be late? We probably already know those because they're the ones that deliver stuff on the last week of January already. But like, how do we manage those? What's going to be the impact for the business? Do we try and get rid? Do we educate them? Do we charge them more? Lots of different scenarios that you could go through.
Nice. And I mean, just want to dive into you're in a conversation with staff members, you're trying to review, how the first quarter is done. What would you be measuring in terms of business objectives or staff objectives to know that you're on track and things are working right? And or if things are going horribly wrong.
I mean, I think at its most fundamental, it's probably, are all the submissions done right? I mean, I know that sounds pretty basic, but I think have we of our client portfolio, the ones that we're responsible for, did we get them all done on time?
Mhm.
That's probably got to be the first measure, and then reflect more broadly on that the wider portfolio and like, are all of the submissions done as expected? Have all of our clients, whether we've done them or they've done them, are those all submitted? Um, I think after that, then I think there's going to be some intangible stuff in terms of like asking the team, did it go well, or are you completely like stressed and going completely mad out of your mind? Like that's not something you're ever going to be able to measure on a timesheet or anything else. But I think there are stuff that there are metrics you'll be able to pick up. You should be able to measure through the quarter, what did the workload look like? If you've got a decent timesheet or task management, your recording process here, were we able to sort of track? Did we get did we get that first quarter submission done? Within 1 week, within 2 weeks, within 3 weeks, within 4 weeks, up to the deadline, and how did that work? And was it back end loaded or not? Because that will then help us to figure out where do we go in the future. Um, I think the only other thing that you can then sort of try and measure, but this depends really on the practice, is like what was your sort of time to close? Not just about when did submissions happen, but what did your communication look like in terms of were you having to chase clients for 3 weeks before the submission deadline, or were you actually able to get information into systems early enough so that maybe on the 8th, sorry, not on the 8th, on the 6th of July, you were able to press the button and say that's kind of done. So if you could measure kind of like the time from notifying a client that the submission is required to be done and then the point where it got completed, that's a good metric to understand and measure, because that gives you an idea of like the workflow and the time required, particularly you probably more so for clients that are not on software, because maybe those are ones that are more challenging, but that would be a good metric to measure.
Yeah, and I think there's probably going to be a challenge around the accounting firms figuring out the return on investment and time spent from staff members, and whether some clients are profitable versus others. And I mean, how important is it going to be to really iron out those particular metrics, like at the beginning versus more sort of further into the process?
I mean, for me, return on investment is not a great metric generally for accountancy firms to measure. It's always quite difficult to measure, but partly because typically we don't have the granular level of data required to be able to give an accurate reflection on the impact of a change has been made, whether it's technology or systems and processes or personnel. Um, and so I tend to avoid return on investment calculations. But what I am looking for is I'm looking for efficiency returns in terms of like can I measure the time required, and doing it in quarter one or quarter two is going to be way too early, because there's going to be some bedding in of processes and systems, there's going to be some bedding in of communication changes, software implementation changes and stuff. So I think the reality is that in year one, really what you're going to be doing is formulating a bit of a view on where are we at with this. Are we doing the right things? Have we kind of got the staffing resource requirement correct? Have we are the training issues on the software, what's going well and what's not going well? I think when you get to the end of year one, you can kind of assess the financial impact of that, because you'll have a very clear, well, you should have a fairly clear view then of we build X number of clients, Y, it cost us, Z to kind of get to this result. Is that kind of acceptable or not? Or do we need to kind of revisit it and tweak it? And also bear in mind that review at that point of time will have to look forward into the reduction in the threshold as well, because we'll have a whole tranche of additional clients coming on board as a consequence. So I think this is because of the nature of the cycle of the threshold changes and stuff, it's going to take us it's going to take at least a year for us to kind of get a bit of a handle on what's going on, but it's going to take us really probably 2 or 3 years to get a real proper feel for are we getting this absolutely right? And bear in mind that we're going to be dealing with larger clients first, then we're going to be dealing with gradually smaller and smaller clients who will be you potentially less receptive to price, the more to price changes, certainly price increases. They may be they may get less benefit and less insight from utilizing a technology and other things. So the attitude of those type of clients and that scale is going to change a little bit as well as you go through this process.
Yeah, and hopefully that phased rollout will actually, decrease the burden with the learning of, how to roll software out, how to price for it, how to deal with communication, etc. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Um, we're almost at the end, but I really wanted to sort of wrap this entire series up with just the one actionable tip that accountants can take today to prepare for MTD. So hit us with the actionable tip, John.
Um, so I mean, I think the reality here is like, don't worry about getting it wrong, right? I think that's probably the most important thing I can say, and that's again, it's not, it maybe doesn't sound particularly actionable, but I see a lot of accountants getting really hung up on, have I got the right software, have I made the right choices, or am I going to get the pricing right, or am I going to screw this up, right? Let we're compliance led people in the first instance. We're going to make sure, come hell or high water, that our clients are compliant with the requirements. We're going to make sure that as many of them as possible are going to get those submissions done on time. We're going to know where we're at in August 2026 of like, have we achieved that first hurdle of that first quarterly submission. If we get the pricing wrong, right, well, it's either going to cost us as a business a little bit of money, or it's going to cost our clients a little bit because maybe we charge them too much. You can fix that. You can rectify that. You can have, most clients will understand that this is new and they'll be receptive to a conversation about making sure that we get it right. Um, if we completely misjudged it in terms of like staffing resource and other things, that would become apparent really, really quickly. And again, we can get that wrong, get that right in terms of like trying to trying to sort that out. That's maybe probably the hardest challenge with all of this, because obviously recruitment is challenging generally, and recruiting talent next year is probably going to be even more pressured as a consequence of lots of firms looking for more talent. So that's probably the one that I would be looking out for the most. And finally, on the technology choices and stuff, like if you get it wrong and if you kind of onboard a whole bunch of clients into a system and then suddenly realize it doesn't work for you, well, okay, that is going to be a little bit difficult to kind of deal with, but you can switch away from this. And the advantage if you've picked a cloud solution is actually quite often you don't want to hear this, Logan, but the transition away between one system and another is not
Pretty
too
easy.
painful generally. And work with the vendor. If you've struggled with something, like, work with the vendor, because either they've oversold a product, or you've screwed up, or the training hasn't been quite right, or something's not gone well somewhere. And like, quite often it's just a matter of having a conversation and saying, hey, that first quarter was horrible, right? Like, why do we make it right? Or how do we fix this? Or actually, hey, on reflection, that first quarter was really great, when we're doing that review. But how do we make it even more seamless? How do we improve it? Are there some bits of information we can get out of the system to sort of say, right, you know what, we had 10 clients that delivered everything on the last minute. How do we kind of like pick that up? Do we have that data at our fingertips that we can see?
Yeah, I love that advice, and yeah, I think that's super key. Things can be solved, things can be rectified. Particularly with a phased rollout, it's going to provide a little bit of grace around getting things right in that first year. So don't worry, everything can be resolved in this way. But yeah, that's a wrap for MTD Masterclass series. And again, huge thank you to you, John, for sharing your experience and all the practical insights throughout these 5 episodes. Again, I really hope that everyone is leaving these series with a little bit more insight, feeling a little bit more prepared, and maybe even excited about the opportunities that MTD is going to bring for your firm next year. And again, remember John's final tip: don't worry about getting these things wrong, whether it's the pricing, the right software, staffing resources. Everything can be rectified and fixed, and things may be difficult at times, but we can resolve this. So, and if you are getting sort of started with a landlord specific solution, or exploring that and trying to find something specific for your landlord clients, come check us out, landlordstudio.com. Our platform is specifically built for landlords and the accountants who serve them. So we have features like property level tracking, automated reconciliation, mobile receipt capture, all those sort of good things. So jump on our website today to book a demo, and we can make MTD a success for your firm. But again, really appreciate the time here, John, and thank you so much for everyone listening to today's series. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, mate.